Hello and welcome to the next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, do you remember a few weeks ago we had my ex-colleague Stuart McDonough on the podcast? Well,
Yeah.
After we spoke, Stuart put me in touch with a gentleman who goes by the name of the Collaboration Junkie. And said Collaboration Junkie is our guest on today's show.
Yeah, today we have Dave Plunkett, and that's spelled Plunket, Plunkett. Dave, welcome to the next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dave, what on earth is a Collaboration Junkie?
Well, and I think it's quite fitting that I'm here on the back of a referral as well. I think that's there's a nice synergy between what I do and how I'm here today as well. So I think that's a really nice piece. And sorry, Kevin, I missed it. Was that tell us about Collaboration Junkie? Was that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I help brands leverage their credibility to form really rock solid partnerships to help them grow their business, and that's both around helping them understand who to target and the real value behind the reason why someone would want to partner with them. But then I really help them work on the pieces that so many people neglect, which is once you've got someone that's signed up as a partner, how are you helping them to do what you want them to do? What support are you giving them? What service are you delivering them, not just their clients? And that whole piece around really activating partnerships is something that I'm deeply passionate about, because it's where so many people fall short. So many people speak to you, go, oh yeah, I've tried partnerships, and they just didn't work out for me. And it's because there'll be one or many things that kind of just weren't quite right. So I'm here to kind of use the benefit of my expertise and the mistakes that I've made or witnessed, so that other people can't. And yeah,
Dave, I mean, you're the Collaboration Junkie, which is quite an unusual thing to call yourself, because if you're a junkie, it means you're sort of like a bit like a Man United fan, really, aren't you? So, oh, you are a Man United fan. Oh, sorry, right. But
I'm sorry. We try to avoid Man United fans on the show. I know I've made a mistake.
I try to avoid football talk full stop at the moment, to be honest with you. But
yeah.
But there we go.
No, I'm only kidding. The Collaboration Junkie, I mean, that does set you apart. But what is it about your journey that got you to where you are now?
Oh, great! Brilliant question. So the brand has been going for just over 2 years, and I started. It all started because I was running a business that was built around partnerships. My background's in business membership, and we grew that up to almost a couple of thousand members, almost entirely through word of mouth and referrals and strategic partnerships. Mm-hmm. I then ran a business that provided a business benefit package that was born out of our membership to other brands as a white labeled service. So essentially we were working in partnership with our clients to promote to their audience. And we had a whole load of benefit providers who we worked in partnership with, and we were responsible for providing them leads. So my whole kind of last 15 years had been living and breathing partnerships. But I got quite miserable running that business, and until a point when I really realized how miserable I was. And so at the start of 2020, end of 2019, decided I needed to do something that I enjoyed again, where I felt I was delivering real personal value, and build a business of my own design rather than one I fell into. And I realized that I'm absolutely passionate about partnerships. It's something I've lived and breathed. And at the time, and really to this day, there aren't that many people speaking about it in the context that I do. Lots of people doing various bits of digital marketing or mindset or mental health or wellness or all this stuff, but not many people in the partnership space. And so that's what I decided to do. And the Collaboration Junkie piece comes from, I don't want to call myself a guru or an expert or anything like that. I didn't want it to be my name as the brand, because I wanted to create something in time that's bigger than that. And that junkie thing is just that kind of it being in your blood. It's just what you live and breathe. And it was also, if I'm honest, it was also a little bit of a pre-qualifier. Kind of, if someone doesn't want to work with me because they don't like the name of my brand, then they're not going to enjoy working with me anyway. if I'm perfectly. So there was this. It was a culmination of all those things. Really, it is something that I live and breathe. And whenever I have a one-to-one with someone, my mind immediately goes to like, well, where can I hook these people up? Where's there a good source of partnerships? And so it just felt right. And I tested it with a few people that knew me, and they were like, yes, absolutely, amazing, bang on. So and so here we are. Yeah.
And Dave, just wind that back a little bit.
Yeah.
We're talking partnerships, but what do we really mean by partnerships? Give me a few examples of what a partnership is.
Okay. Yeah, brilliant. So a lot of the partnerships where that I help people with are around lead generation. So it's a step up from a referral partner, for example. So referrals can be anyone and everyone. It's your clients, your colleagues, your network. And I would class a strategic partner as a stage up from that. It's another individual or a business owner where they're not just promoting you because they like you. There's a real strong synergy between what you do and what they do. And there might be a commercial aspect, and there often is, but the real reason for that partnership is that synergy between what the two businesses do. That by the partner referring you in, they're also benefiting themselves as well as their audience. So it's not necessarily the legal definition of a partnership or a joint venture, but it's two or more organizations or individuals kind of working together to create something that's greater. And that can be around lead generation. It can be the other way around, that you're looking to partner with someone because there's an element of service that you could bring in that would enhance your overall offering for your clients, and you don't want to do that in-house. It's better to go and find someone that does and partner with them. But equally, I know people who are in similar spaces. It could be two different consultants who decide that actually let's just share our audiences. Let's come together and run a great event. It's two gentlemen running a podcast together. It's a partnership can be anything and anything you want it to be. And different partnerships require a different level of formality and structure. But essentially, it's about having a common goal and a common purpose. And the thing that you do is greater than the sum of its parts, I suppose.
It's quite interesting. What you actually bring people together that hadn't already thought of it then?
Yes, absolutely in some instances, because there's a thing I say a lot, which is that because we're all so busy, we become inherently lazy. And that if something isn't obvious, or if it's handed us to on our plate, if it isn't part of our core business, it gets put onto that pile of I'll get round to that, and it never happens. Right. And so people, when they're looking at whether it's referrals or strategic partners, will just look at the obvious that's around them and the people they know. Whereas actually, when you take the time out of your business or your life, depending on what you're looking to partner, and go, well, actually, where can I really add value, and who can really add value into me? It's surprising. It's surprising the answers that you get sometimes, and it's just about having that headspace to kind of think about it and go, well, yeah, actually, where is there a nice fit here? So,
I'm just thinking about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the best scenario for a collaboration to evolve? I mean, is it that you get people together in a room, brainstorm? I mean, what's the sort of, if you're a baker, you want to bake a cake, then we all kind of know how that happens. But if you're a collaboration junkie, what is it that you would do, or the situation that would enable your talents to come to the fore?
So essentially it's a consultancy model was how I actually work with people. To an extent. There are a couple of people who I do the doing, but mostly I'm providing my knowledge and expertise in an environment, either one-to-one or one to a few. And I have a framework. So I have a framework that's dance, and I have a methodology that I walk people through. And some people need more help at one of those five stages, and those stages are discovery, which is all about understanding.
You said something. You said dance, didn't you, instead of dance? Yeah, but I mean, you support a Northern football team, but you say dance. So I mean, I don't.
Well, that's normal. I mean, the average Manchester United fan lives in Surrey. Remember?
Well, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd forgotten that. No. Seriously, though. So your framework is dance. So that's right. DANCE. So,
that's right, yeah.
And the first one is discovery. I wonder if we can get to the second one without you telling us, because I haven't actually researched this bit, but Kevin has, so he'll probably know the answer. But D for discovery. Okay, so what do you do there?
So that's all about understanding, first, being really crystal clear on why you want to partner. Okay, because right. It's very rare that that one person is ideal for different types of partnerships. So, yeah. Then it's really understanding. So if we're focusing on lead generation, it's understanding who your ideal target market is. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be for your business as a whole. It can just be for this campaign. Because if you don't know that, how can you know who the ideal person to partner with? And it's not that you don't partner with anyone else. It's just if this is something that you're going to really proactively go and look to do, then you want to focus your efforts on as targeted a market as you possibly can. So it's about it's really understanding who your market is, who your ideal partner is, and there's something I call the real why, and it's the reason why that person wants to partner with you, because. Right. Often I mentioned that often in a business context, there's often a commercial aspect to a partnership, a 10% commission or whatever it may be. And that's great. But for really strong, long-lasting relationships, which is what we all want, right? Whether it's business or life, we want strong, long-lasting, fun relationships. There's an additional reason. And there are people out there where what you do for their audience not only benefits their audience, but it benefits them in such a way that the person who's referred you benefits as well. Either directly, because what you do directly enhances their product or service, or more indirectly in a reputational way. I'll give you a quick example on this one, because the one, there was someone I worked with who was a telemarketing agency. And a very, very good one at that. And they were looking to target inbound search companies, so people who did SEO and pay-per-click and all that type of stuff for their clients. And they weren't having much luck. And it's because they were targeting these companies with the main reason being this commission that they paid. The actual reason why these people would want to partner is because they're generating leads for their clients, and then they lose any visibility of them whatsoever then. And if the clients aren't very good at following them up, well, then it makes their campaigns look bad. So the real reason why these inbound lead companies would refer a telemarketer is because they have the confidence that the leads they generate to follow up properly are more likely to convert. Therefore, their client is either going to stay with them or probably spend more money with them. And it's pulling that value out, and that being front and foremost when you make your partner approaches, that's the real kind of eye-opener key piece in that discovery phase. That's the secret sauce is people really understanding the true value in the partnership. So it's
like a bit like an onion. You're peeling away the sort of the parts of the onion to get to the real reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And once you understand that, everything else hooks kind of around it. So
yeah, so that's the D. Kevin, you've done the research now, so you know what the A stands for, don't you?
Of course I do, Graham. Of course I do.
What is
Dave,
it?
what does the A stand for?
A's for assembly.
I wouldn't have got that in a million years.
So in a dance analogy, I liken this to all the behind the scenes setup. So you can have a festival with the greatest lineup in the world of artists, sold thousands of tickets, but if you turn up and it's poorly managed and the sound system's crap and everything else, well then it's just not going to work.
Sounds a bit like a theatre of dreams for me.
But
and I can really echo that one, Dave. And in the business that I'm involved in, we've just put a partnership together with a software provider around strategy. We're putting together a product that we're calling the Strategy Accelerator, and it's a mixture of us running workshops with senior finance people and helping them formulate their strategy and effectively being a seller of this strategy toolkit that's coming from the partner. And so as we put this podcast out, we've only just launched that, but we've been talking about that partnership and doing the behind the scenes stuff and working out how it's going to work probably for the last 6 months. And it fits very well into this series because the average value of a sale that we're going to put together is going to be certainly 4 figures and potentially into 5 figures for helping those senior finance people with the strategy of their own business.
Yeah, and so that and in that sense, that behind the scenes stuff has got to be super, has got to be absolutely tight, so that it's about delivering a consistent level of service to your partner, to their audience. So it's things like tracking of leads, and are you set up, if you're in a high volume lead business, are you set up to be able to cope with a huge influx of leads? Back in my membership days, we worked with a national provider of data, and they promised us they would, and they didn't. They absolutely. So it happens to even large companies get this piece wrong, but it's about really making sure that you're ready and set up, because, and things like tracking. If you're working with referral partners who are generating you leads, then being able to keep them up to date with where they are on your journey is essential. If someone speaks to you and goes, "Oh, what happened to so and so?" and you can't tell them, you either look like you're a crook because you maybe don't want to be passing commission, or that you're incompetent because you don't know, and neither of those is a good look for a partner. So it's really important to get that piece right.
So assembly is a bit like you're assembling the parts of a system.
Absolutely, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So if you don't get the right system between in a collaborative way, then it's going to fall down, and both of you look a bit dim.
Yeah.
Got you.
And trust is broken. It's not what it doesn't necessarily win you partnerships, but it certainly maintains them, because trust is everything.
Yeah.
And if you get those bits wrong, it's where trust starts to erode, and it's a hard journey back from that.
So so far what we've got is this idea of discovery, and we've now got an assembly. Actually, assembly reminds me of when we're all at school, which is probably not that long ago for you, but basically Kevin and I went in the not in the 30s, but Kevin was in his 30s by the time he left school. Of course, he had to repeat the last year quite a few times, but seriously, no. So the idea of an assembly is you're putting these bits together.
Yeah,
excellent. So well, next one is N for
nurture, and this is about once you've got your partners on board, or even before you have them on board, it's how you communicate.
Yeah.
And so even before someone signs any kind of partnership agreement or anything like that, it's about setting expectations, really understanding what does success look like. Yeah. I talk about a degree of separation, because unless you explicitly talk about what short, mid, long-term success looks like, even if you're just 5% out at the start, over time that gets a bigger and bigger gap. And so it's really important to both set out short, mid, and long-term expectations, and also kind of review points about when you can assess that partnership. And then once you've got people on board, how are you communicating with them? And there's a mix of communication styles you need. You need your regular monthly kind of update on what's happening in the partnership, but then there should be those more informal chats. You're building relationships, of course, and it's just making sure that you have the right level of communication. And and sometimes there's a danger with partners when they're at a how can we put it, when they're at a higher level, maybe when there's a disparity between partners, either they're a larger organization or a more wealthy organization, or where there's a apparent disparity, there can sometimes be a danger to not get this bit right. But it is so important to treat all your partners not completely equally, because you dedicated the Pareto's law of 80-20 is absolutely true, but not to neglect any partner, because you never know where the next opportunity is coming from. And so getting that communication right is absolutely key. Absolutely key.
And in this context, nurturing means
nurturing the relationship. It means communicating with them on a consistent basis so that the relationship is nurtured and grows and becomes really rock solid. What you don't want is if someone else comes along who can partner with the person you're partnering with, you don't want them to even think about it, and that's because, and that will, when that only happens when not only is the product or service you're offering great, but when your relationship with them is great, and that only comes from effective communication and nurturing that relationship.
So that then takes us nicely on to C, the letter C. So we've had discovery, assembly, nurture, and
so it's connect. It's connection, and this is at the core of kind of all that I believe in and all that I do, and this is true of any type of partnership, and it's true of any kind of referral as well. It's about making it really, really easy for your partner to connect you to their audience. It's the extra support you give them. So if we are using kind of lead generation as an example, it's one thing shaking someone's hand and saying, right, yeah, brilliant, there's a good match here and you're going to pass me loads of leads, and then you sit back at home and you wait for the emails and the orders to come in and nothing happens. And it's back to that thing of us being, I mentioned a few minutes ago about us being so busy and being lazy. It's, if your partner is speaking to people on a one-to-one basis or in person, then give them some of the tools to look out for. When's the right moment in time to refer you? What are some of the things that someone might say or do that's a trigger to go, oh, I know just the person you should speak to. Give them all that stuff that seems like common sense. It's only common sense to you because you've got loads of experience. And so it's in your head. It's not common sense to someone else. And also often when you're dealing with people who have teams, the person you're speaking to arrange your partnership may be super switched on and will get all this. But if they're not the one that, if they're not the person that's activating the partnership, well then maybe the teams need that little bit of extra support.
Got you.
And then on the flip side, it's external stuff. If you're in a partnership where there's an element of promotion, be it digitally or whatever else, then it's giving people the tools to be able to go and do that. It's giving them the stuff so that they've got everything they need to go out and shout from the rooftops about whatever it is you want them to shout about, I suppose. So
that's connection. So the last one's got, oh, goodness me, I don't know, E for?
Okay, so E's for engage. So we know who we want to partner with. We're confident in our behind the scenes setup. We know we're going to communicate with them the right way, and we're going to give them the support. So it's really only when you're confident that you've got all that you should actually go out and look for partners. And so E is about, how do we go and engage with these people that are out there? What's the messaging that we're using? What's our route to market with them? And it's often the bit that people think is going to be the hardest. But actually it's the simplest piece. Because if you do that, all those other bits right, then actually the going and finding partners is easy, because so many people approach partnerships in the wrong way, which is basically they send messages that sound like they want to sell to your audience, which isn't a partnership at all. By getting your approach right, it becomes quite easy. And that isn't me just saying that with that whole common sense type stuff. There actually is a fairly step-by-step model you can do, and it starts looking at who's in your network and then radiating outwards.
In my business, let's just say, to give you an example, it would be beneficial to my clients if I had lists of very affluent people who might all be similar. So dentists, for instance. Is dance, do I have to figure out how to do a dance to work out how I approach somebody who might have that list of dentists, which might be, jealously guarded and so forth, but to bring my clients' offers to that list, it would be quite beneficial, perhaps to the dentists, but to the list owner, but also to myself. So is that the whole purpose of this framework?
It absolutely is. And that specific bit about how you target and approach those people is the D and the E. It's the first dance and the last dance. It's the D and the E are the bits where you really get your messaging right, because it's identifying who the people are with those lists and who the people are that you can add value to with those lists, and therefore getting your messaging right. All the bits in the middle are about when you're having the conversations with them, you can show them and have absolute confidence in the value and the service that you're going to deliver both them and their clients and their list and their audience and those and particularly when you're looking at kind of in an affluent space, that ANC bit there, that's about the service you're delivering, and service is even more important than ever. Kind of that's right on the money in that space. So that's why I say, that's why I put the engagement at the end, not just because it fitted in with dance, but actually because you need to have all these things in place before you. It's very easy to start going out and send random messages to people that you want to partner with, but you're probably not going to get a good result. And then even if you do get someone going, yeah, why not? We'll give it a punt. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And if you don't deliver as well as you think you're going to, or as you said you would, well, they're not going to come back. And that's also a case study that you've lost to potentially grow more partners. So that's kind of why I say it's really important to think about this as a much more holistic piece before we go out and start making our partner approaches.
So that bit in the middle, this assembly, nurture, and connection.
Yeah.
Just to stick with the sort of example that I'm suggesting, I found somebody who's got this list of dentists who are they're all very, very wealthy, etc. It's very similar. Maybe there's, I don't know, 10,000 of them, and that would be a very attractive audience to many companies seeking to sort of communicate with high net worth or affluent individuals. When it comes to assembly, nurture, and connection, and I'm trying from my small, just me, business to bigger business in terms of maybe this owner of that list, which might be a byproduct of their other business, might be, I don't know, tools or whatever it is that they provide these people. How would I address the assembly, nurture, and connection? What is it that you would recommend in that sense?
Okay, so the first thing I would say about when partnering upwards, as it were,
sure,
never ever undervalue the value that you can deliver. Once you've really understood the value you can deliver to their audience, most of the partnerships that I had, we partnered with global brands like Regis and Volvo and Yale when we were a small business, and yet we played a vital part in these massive organizations' SME engagement strategy in the UK. And it was only from a couple of comments I made that I realized how vital we were in some of those businesses. And it was a real lesson to me to kind of never underplay that value.
That's fantastic, Dave, because to be honest with you, when it comes to this space, I in Brian Clough's words, I'm in the top one.
Okay, nice. Leader in your market. There we go. Well,
there you are. But I'm only saying what other people have said. But basically, I completely agree with you, and I don't want to undersell the value that can be brought to those people. But going back to assembly, nurture, and connection, give us because I'm trying to understand this at the layman's level. Because your knowledge is, I think you've already demonstrated to the audience that you know your stuff. So apply your stuff.
Yeah. So for the assembly, that is all really internal stuff, right? And it starts at the very basics of things like, so you want access to that list. Well, how are they going to be coming into you? Is it through landing pages? Are you going to be able to track them through a CRM system? All that kind of really basic stuff. It's your systems and your processes to make sure you know where things are at. One thing I would say is it's better to have a spreadsheet that you use than a CRM system that you don't. But it's at its core level, it's about going we're going to run efficiently, and just being confident that if suddenly you got a better response than you expected and 2,000 people off that list started coming in, then actually you can cope with that. Partnerships very rarely go better than we expect they will do, and they normally build, but they absolutely do sometimes on occasion, and you need to be ready for that. So that's absolutely internal.
Got you.
There's a key observation I'd make there in terms of if we're talking mainly about marketing, doing business with reasonably affluent people, you're normally talking about a smaller number of much higher value transactions. And you're saying there, a spreadsheet that's used better than the CRM that isn't. And that's a key point here. We're not talking about the need to process bulk data. We're talking about the need to process quality data. So I'm sort of inferring a key piece of advice here, Dave, is probably, don't run out with shiny object syndrome and be conned into buying the latest piece of technology, because it probably doesn't add that much to what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think in this instance, it's probably more relevant to really focus on the journey.
Yeah.
So making sure that you've got that when those do come through, that it's mapped out and there's a consistent level of service and they feel loved and special and wanted. And so I think that would be the key thing there. Nurture is all about how you communicate with with said partner.
Yeah.
So in this instance, it would be really understanding at the outset, when you're having your first partner discussions with someone, what is it you're looking to achieve? Have a kind of almost a checklist of what you would like to get from it, what they want from it, and always thinking about how you can offer value to them and their audience in a way that will positively reflect back to get your outcome, and almost have that checklist of things that you go through. So many people, when they enter into partnerships, will have a partnership agreement that's a big old legal document, but they forget the most important bit, which is, well, how are we actually going to work together? How's this kicking off? What are we going to be doing? And so the nurture piece, really good thing that I always say, is to think of something small that you can do to kick things off, because it's very easy to plan out this great big world domination when you're talking partnerships, and this super integrated solution that you're going to come up with, and all these wonderful bits. And I'm not saying don't have those conversations, because big picture thinking is exciting and fun and it's great, but that I've been part of discussions before where nothing has ever happened because someone's been dragged off in another direction that's never been picked up. So what's the simple thing you can do to just get going? And because once you start doing, well, then you keep on doing. And it's also a great way of actually seeing whether the partner is someone that you do want to work with as well. There's a double-edged thing to that. I
think that's a great bit of advice, Dave. I really do, because I think one of the issues with big idea thinking is that sometimes it's the difficulty is actually to bring that back and almost connect the big idea back to what's going to happen first, second, third, etc. In other words, it would be really good to get over those first three hurdles before we talk about leaping, Beach's Brook or whatever. And at the end, I think the issue that we've got is that get something done, prove that we can work together. I love that idea.
Yeah, and that's where connection comes in. It's a lovely little segue here.
Oh, right, okay.
That's where connection comes in, because this is the key thing. So it's figuring out how. So if you've already decided, if you've already in the discovery phase, you know that there's some value that you can deliver to the partner who has this list. The connection piece is really the implementation of that value. It's what can you physically do? Is it an event? Is it some content that comes out? Is it what can you do that fits in with what the partner's already doing with that list? You want it to be as congruent as it possibly can with what the partner's already doing. Where can you fit in a way? And if there is stuff that the partner's already doing, then often you're adding real value to them, because they're like, you actually go, oh, right, you know what? Actually, I was looking for a guest on next week's webinar, or a speaker at this event, or an offer for this, or whatever it may be. It's finding out a way that you can fit in with whatever they're doing, so it adds value to the partner, and it adds value to their audience as well. And then from there, it's kind of less about the partnership, and it's more about you understanding your own product and your sales funnel. That's the bit where we've moved out. Once that kind of marketing stuff has happened and the messages have gone out, well, we're then out of anything that happens from that point is about your marketing and your sales funnel and however you do what you do, kind of thing. So,
got you. I understand. So this is hopefully that was helpful to somebody out there listening to the sort of explanation, albeit linked to my business. But the the idea that you're bringing here is that you can sort of intercede with a number of things, just like I've come up with, that you can actually go in there, and the way in which you would bring value is by stopping me, almost like providing a map between A and B, and stopping me falling down before I get to B. So in other words, or I'm spending such a long time in, before I get to B, that you can actually shorten the journey, or you can do something to improve the collaboration. And is that how you get paid? Because you're basically advising the right way of doing these things.
Yeah, it is. There's kind of two sides to what I do, really. There's a wonderful creative piece which is in the discovery stage, and that's about just asking the right questions. That's about giving people the freedom to step away from the day to day and go right. And I'll throw the odd idea in there, but typically it comes from them. It's just about asking the right questions and giving them the space to actually do that.
Sure.
The other side of it, the kind of that middle part we've just discussed, is much more around best practices. Look, I've made the mistakes, or I've witnessed the mistakes, or and I've had the successes, so I know what works, and it's within this kind of framework of best practice, which bits are right for you? What can we go and do, and what can we do in what order, really? And it's I think that's why I enjoy what I do, is because there's kind of two sides to it. And the good thing is none of it's rocket science, Graham. It's all common sense.
Oh, it'd have to be rocket science for Kevin. I mean, Kevin, you like rocket science.
Oh, no, rocket science is far too complicated. Far too complicated. I do like simple things. Dave, you're talking about loads of experience and things you've got right, things you've got wrong. And I'm kind of perceiving you could, listening to this, be in a situation that's one of two situations. Now, number one is you need leads. You're looking for people that can introduce you to the right high value potential customers. But there's the flip side, and actually I'm finding myself a bit in this one, that I've got people approaching me all the time to partner. Now, the difficulty I've got is working out, as these approaches come in and they all want to come and sell themselves to me, who are the right ones to partner with and who are the wrong ones? Because they're saying, oh, membership business, you've got lots of members, you talk to your members all the time, you put a podcast out once a week to your members, you run events to your members. So there must be several hundred fintech companies out there who are really very interested to talk to the senior finance professionals that are our members. Now, how do you work out, when you get all of these things coming in, who the right ones are?
Okay, so great question, and one that I'm very familiar with, because obviously having a membership background myself, we used to get approached all the time, and then when the business moved on from that, we had access to 500,000 SMEs in the following business, so we were quite an attractive proposition. So completely with you, and so there's a few obvious things, which is go and check the business out. If they've got a horrendous reputation, well, then you don't want to be putting them in front of your members. So there's the obvious stuff like that around. But once you've narrowed out that 10% of a chances, let's say, and you're still left with a huge range of people, I think it comes down to their approach. So if they're coming at you talking about all the value they can offer, if purely talking about the value they can offer to your members or to your audience, then to me that's they're just looking to sell to your list. If they're coming and talking to you about the way that they can add value to your broader proposition, well, they're talking about the value that they can offer to you, not to your audience. And that's that real why piece. That's that kind of, if people have got that understanding of what a partnership it's about the partnerships between you and them, not them just selling to your list. That's an amazing green flag. Now, there will be people, unfortunately, who won't make that approach, who actually could be great partners, but you have to have a qualification thing somewhere. And that's a really good one. If they're talking about what they can do for you, not just your audience, then that to me immediately shows they've got the collaborative mindset right.
And what would that be then, Dave? I mean, in Kevin's case, what should the fintech company be thinking about? I mean, you've said, okay, it's got to add value to Kevin, but give us an example. What would that be?
So it needs to be coming up with something that that either will help drive extra engagement between the members, would make it more likely for members to retain, would maybe make it easier. Maybe there's an attraction around helping engaging content. It'll be something around it, making it essentially easier for coming to sell and retain members, and so that
or to ascend them through the levels that you've got.
Yes.
So I mean, that, I guess that would be quite useful, Kevin, that if I rocked up at your door and said, by the way, you've got 10,000 finance directors or aspirant finance directors, and you can actually get them to spend not just 500 quid with you, but 5,000 quid, because they're going to become part of your platinum group. And it's much more likely that you'll do that because I've got an agreement with this fintech company who's going to give them whatever, and part of that 5,000 would go to them. That is the right kind of approach, Dave. Is that the kind of thing?
Yeah, well, it absolutely depends on each product or service, but it is about that joint looking. Thinking. And then you're completely right. It's about looking at that overall picture. Everyone has to benefit from that piece, and that should be recognised right from the very front. The absolute litmus test though is referral. So if you've still got more partners than you can handle, because and I imagine you probably have, Kevin, with that list that you've got, it's and you're still looking to pull it out as well. Who else have they worked with?
I see.
Who else have they worked with that's like you that will give them a testimonial, or are there people from within your membership who have used the product or service already? It's going back to that. Which it's going back to word of mouth, and it's the oldest form of marketing. And
we've got another interesting one to throw on top of that, Dave, in that we're trying to run a learning and development business and trying to stay independent. So somebody comes along to us and says, I want to automate my expenses system, for instance. Who would you recommend? We'll say, we wouldn't want to say, oh, go to company X. We'd want to say, well, how do you want to automate your system? What do you want to get out of it as a result? Okay, understand what you're doing. In our experience, well, these 2 or 3 might be able to do the job. Suggest you go and look at them. We want to give.
Are you saying
independent advice?
You wouldn't just say Xero or QuickBooks? No, you would. You'd be saying Xero quicker than Newcastle United could earn one.
I think in some instances there's nothing wrong with building a marketplace.
Sure.
So or doing something on a smaller scale. So using that example, for example, let's look at accounting software, for example. As you say, it'd be very easy to try and tie up a sponsorship with Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or whoever else. And I can absolutely see why you wouldn't want to do that. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a marketplace where they all have an offer, or you just run specific events. You do a smaller scale partnership than the big broad ones.
We've actually got a great example of that, David. This guy who's been a guest on this podcast, Graham, you might remember we had Chris Treadwell on, and we were talking to Chris at the time about, well, what do you do when you outgrow Xero or QuickBooks? Because Chris is on the sales team of the next level up software company, an organization called Aquila. Now, in Grow CFO, we partner with Aquila, but we don't advertise or promote their product.
Yeah, it's a difficult name now, don't you think? We partner with Aquila. I'm not sure.
It is a killer accounting solution, you see.
Yeah, I know.
That was their clever name.
No, not so clever name, if you ask me.
Chris runs a sort of bi-weekly webinar for us called Future of Finance Functions. And we use Chris because he's in fintech sales. He knows all of the people in the market. He knows people that can come in and talk about any subject that the members might be interested in. I mean, we never go out and promote Chris's company, but you can bet your life when Chris is on the Zoom camera, he's got a background behind him and it's got the company logo on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where no partnership is the same. A real soapbox subject of mine was going back probably going back 10 years ago now, when I was in the membership space, and our benefit providers, the amount of them that had partnership managers, and they weren't. It was just another word for business development, because the minute you said, right, yeah, can we do this and this and this? Oh no, can't do that. It just works like this, and there was no tailoring at all. It was just another word for sales, which infuriated me. And no two partnerships are the same. They're like, you have your template and you have your framework, and so it's very easy to make every partner you work with feel special in their own special way. But realistically, you're only deviating slightly out, and you find the ways to make the most of the opportunity, like you did there. You can't do direct promotion, but Chris sees enough value in indirect value from all the other stuff that you're doing that it becomes a worthwhile thing for him to do. And I think that's a great example of taking the situation and making the most of the opportunity, which is what it's all about.
I admit, I do have a little trick when it comes to those people that have got their partnership manager, who's really the business development person. The first thing that I tend to suggest, if it's something that I don't think, maybe this is a bit more than just a sales push. I'll probably ask them to find somebody in their organization who's prepared to come along and be a podcast guest. Because as well as this podcast, I run the Grow CFO show. So first question, okay, great. Can we have your CFO on a podcast, please? Worked with one yesterday. It looks as though it's going to be a very interesting podcast on fundraising. The next one may be for a fintech. I thought, oh, that's an interesting area that you're in. Oh, right. So you're a piece of fintech that's all about fundraising. Okay, and you're talking about when your solution is right compared to going into an angel investor or a Series A or a Series B. Okay, that sounds like a really interesting subject that you could formally present to in a Future of Finance Functions webinar.
Yeah.
Where we're definitely saying, no, you're not going there to sell, you're going there to share your expertise.
Have you noticed, Dave, that Kevin's actually betraying a really vicious streak to get people onto his podcast?
How do you think I got Dave on this one?
Oh, well, through referral. But no, the thing is, it's smart, Kevin, but it's at the end of the day, it kind of maybe weeds out those people who are not right, as Dave quite rightly says, that they're maybe just trying to punt you something, and it's just a way of batting them back, but in a nice, polite way, which you would do anyway, Kevin. But Dave, on the other hand, would just tell them to go and walk off a short plank, wouldn't you, Dave?
I'm nothing if not honest, but or maybe head back to the championship, like Leeds.
Leeds, of course, being my second team, I'm rather hoping it's Everton that are heading off to the championship for the first time ever.
Oh well, they'll enjoy it down there with Fat Frank. He'll really enjoy it down there. But it was quite good last time. But anyway, no. By
the time this show's published, Graham, we're going to know the answer to that question.
Unfortunately, yes, it's one of those. It's a good job we haven't got any good teams to play in the next few days, Arsenal and Chelsea. But I won't worry about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving back to Dave Plunkett from the Collaboration Junkie. Give us an idea, Dave. What's the big thing that you want Collaboration Junkie to achieve over the next 2 or 3 years?
You know what? So it's about. So I've got a book out at the second half of the year around the dance framework,
right?
And so really scaling the business up. And the reason why I want to do that, the purpose behind my life, and this might sound really things, I want to enjoy my life. That's it. There's no deep, meaningful thing. I want to enjoy my life, and I want to help others to enjoy their life too. Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe that for most business owners, they don't enjoy lead generation. They say they don't like sales. Rubbish. People love sales because sales is talking to someone. They love sales when they're talking to someone about that wants what they've got. You get to talk about all the wonderful things you can do for someone. People don't like lead generation. They don't like speaking to someone and not knowing it. And so I genuinely believe that if you get your partnership strategy right, Well, it's a more enjoyable way to work. It solves out a bit of your business you don't like, and you enjoy your business more. And if you enjoy your business more, you enjoy your life more. And I genuinely believe that. It's a great way to work. And so what I really want Collaboration Junkie to achieve is just to get, I think one thing that the pandemic did was really put collaboration and partnerships out into the masses. And that's great that people want to work in this way. But wanting to work doesn't pay the bills. It does. Wanting to work in a certain way doesn't actually mean that you do it effectively. And there's so many people I speak to that have tried partnerships and it hasn't gone right for them, and so they give up on it. And so what I really want to do is just get out to as many people that, look, there is just some simple stuff that you can do that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a success, but it gives you a fighting chance. And so it really is about just getting out to as many people as I possibly can in whatever way I can. So.
And before we draw all this together, the beauty of your background, and I know it's not a background, it's actually where you're at. You've got a picture of Eric Cantona. You've got a yellow submarine from Liverpool. You've got, I think, a James Bond.
That's right.
Aston
Yeah.
Martin. You're interested in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You've got some kind of tiger or something on the shelf, a few books that you've read, and I don't know who Pete Heller's big love is. I have no idea what that is, but you're quite an interesting, complex character there. Oh, and it looks like you've got a guitar or some musical instrument.
I have. So Pete Heller's big love is a dance track, and then I've got my guitar there. So yeah, I wear my interests and my passions on my sleeve and in my office background, and life's about connection, Graham, right? Yeah. And any collaboration and any partnership, it all starts with human connection, and life's all about that. And so I like to share the things that interest me, because if it helps build connection with someone, well, then it's more fun and I enjoy it more, and that's what it's all about.
Well, what a place to end this podcast on. Dave Plunkett, you've been a brilliant guest on the Next 100 Days podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Graham, I think some really, really great advice there on partnerships. Because if you're working with high value customers, affluent customers, there are a limited number of them. And the trick is who can put you in contact with the right people. So partnerships are very important. And certainly Dave gave some great advice on how to create those partnerships. And also gave some great advice that if you're already the person with all those contacts, how do you deal with somebody else who wants to make use of those contacts? So two sides of this, and I think Dave's given us a very, very strong answer.
Yeah, I think Dave was good value on the podcast. And as you say, gave some good, clear advice as to how you might go through the detail. His dance framework just helps you think through the things that you might be missing in your current approach to creating partnerships, or the ones that you really want to reach an end goal. It's been a really interesting podcast today, Kevin, and one that might help people attract more high value clients. So it's been a good start to our new series, all about marketing to and doing business with the affluent and with high value clients.
Yeah, we might be doing this series, but we're still the Next 100 Days podcast, Graham. And I love something like a dance methodology where you've got some distinct steps that you can think about going through in the next 100 days.
Absolutely so. So today I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.